Foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slavery, and Aboriginals. If you look on the FBA website, you will see that the 3 stars on their flag, let's zoom in on that flag for a moment, if we can. All right, the 3 stars on their flag represents the groups that will become the foundational Black Americans. Okay, 3 stars at the top. Remember that. Okay. 2 of the stars, well, the first one it says the Black Aboriginal people of North America. Granted. The next 2 stars say the Black explorers and traders who had contact with the Americas before Columbus. And the third one says the captives brought to Western Hemisphere from Africa. Both of those second 2 stars are Africans, admittedly so. Moving down, where you see the American descendants of slavery, their guide criteria for eligibility to be an ADOS is an individual who could provide reasonable documentation of at least one ancestor enslaved in the United States. And they would need to demonstrate that they have identified as Black, African American, colored, or Negro on established legal documents for at least 10 years prior to the onset of this program, meaning the ADOS program, right? Also at the bottom, it excludes any Black immigrant who came to the United States voluntarily after slavery, all right? So basically what they're saying, again, on their websites, you'll see that anybody who was here in America as a quote-unquote immigrant before 1865 would fit that description. If they were a slave or an ancestor was a slave before 1865, they fit the description, all right? So I wanted to point out here the fact that they, as an ethnic group or a nation, they have created flags, all right? And we're dealing with the unification of not only the Black Aboriginals here in North America, but also the Africans from around the world, all right? So is there any difference between those movements and the UNIA? Could they have been influenced? But of course, without the UNIA ACL, you wouldn't even have that discussion. We have put together in the Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World, Declaration number 2, it said that we believe in the supreme authority of our race in all things racial, that all things are created and given to man as a common possession, and that there should be an equitable distribution and apportionment of all such things. And in consideration of the fact that as a race, we are now deprived of those things that are morally and legally ours, we believe it right that all things should be acquired and held by whatsoever means possible. That right there was signed into law in 1920. Again, in consideration of the fact that as a race, we are now deprived of those things that are morally and legally ours. So that means the legal part of the ADOS FBA argument was already codified in the UNIA ACL, Declaration of Rights of Negro Peoples of the World. Because wherever you are domiciled, the UNIA was to be a base to support what you're doing. So let's move forward. Here we see John Edward Bruce. As a matter of fact, let us zoom in a little bit so we can see that it's not lying, making things up. What does it say in the first line there? John Edward Bruce was born into slavery. Okay. Why is that important? Why is John Edward Bruce important in this discussion on Garveyite perspective? Because he was a high-ranking official in the UNIA ACL and a founding member. Here over on the right, you see his own words. Okay. I do not understand your Back to Africa movement slogan to mean what the critics have mischievously interpreted it to mean. I think I see with tolerably clear vision that your purpose is to lay the foundation broad and deep so that the Negroes of the coming day will know better than we, who are now blazing the pathway and preparing the race for African nationalization, how to possess and hold and develop the heritage which the Almighty has given to the Black race. Okay? So when we're talking about Pan-Africanism and a Pan-African government of the world, that does not exclude the missions and movements that are happening in different parts of the world. Okay, we are a world people. If our people are in distress anywhere, we should have a foundation and a base to support them. Okay, so again, I don't see there so far we don't have any differences between the FBA and ADOS movement moving forward. Who else? Ida B. Wells. Everyone knows her story and how outspoken she was on slavery, her history with slavery, etc. Okay, clearly you see here, together with Garvey, original Garveyite. Moving forward, people say Garveyism is hero worship. Okay, we cleared this up in a different presentation, but just to go into a couple things here, Garvey was not alone. Remember, he left Jamaica in 1916 to meet Booker T. Washington to see if he can get a Tuskegee Institute built in Jamaica. In Harlem, the founders were Isaac B. Allen, Irena Mormon Blackstone, Walter Conway, Carrie Merrill, Harriet Rogers. Okay, have we looked into their history? Well, let's take a moment. Here you see the very top, the headline of the story. Let's go over here and check it out. He was born a slave. Isaac B. Allen elected to serve in the Congress. To serve in the Governor's Council. Okay, Isaac B. Allen, who is the first colored man in any northern state to be elected counselor to a governor, was born a slave in Hampton, Virginia, 52 years ago. And he was a founding member. Moving over, Irene, well, let's go through it. You see here, it says 3 of the 6 directors listed on the certificate of incorporation were women. Carrie B. Merrill, an activist from Massachusetts, and Harlemites, Harriet Rogers and Irene Blackstone. Okay, here's a breakdown on Irene Blackstone. Okay, all this here. Here you go over here with Carrie Merrill. Okay, no race has succeeded without a good and strong womanhood. Okay, and some never will. Uh-oh. Here we go. Over here to the right, well, no, all the way at the bottom, you see Walter Conway. All right, he was the first vice president. All right. And moving over here, we see Black people of the world had only progressed from chattel slavery to economic slavery. Okay, that was the position from back then, this position now. And any slavery should be recompensated. Okay, to use the word from the Empress. Okay, and one more time, he came from Jamaica to meet Booker T. Washington because he read the book Up from Slavery, all right? Because we were slaves all over the world. So if we can find a unifying way to gain benefit for all our people wherever they are domiciled, whatever their procedures are, we can collectively work on fixing them, all right? Moving forward. So you see here, this is all the list of the founders. We could go through all of their histories and things like that, how many of them were from America and how many of them have descendants of slaves. But you understand that this was not the purpose. Division is not the purpose of us. We're supposed to come together. Okay, it is not the position of the UNIA that we would infringe on a check that some one individual will receive based on their lineage. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. It would be the position of the UNIA ACL to assist you in getting your check and not need any compensation for it. Moving forward. For the Aboriginals, here you see 2 prominent Aboriginal leaders of the time, Fred Maynard and Tom Lacey, became Garveyites and viewed Garveyism as an answer to Aboriginal issues in Australia. Okay, so you have to remember that the term Aborigine and Aboriginal was made more of a common usage word because of the struggles of the Australian Aborigines. Okay, so that wasn't always a word that everyone used. You know, neither was Indigenous. We sort of just knew. But somehow, in these times, we're confused about this. Moving forward. Again, we see that we believe in the supreme authority of our race in all things racial. Okay, and everything that we're supposed to have as a people, it don't matter what it is or who specifically supposed to have it. If one person is supposed to have $47, we are to make sure that that person has his $47 and not expect anything from it. Okay. And however, it has to happen. You see down here at the bottom, by whatsoever means possible. Is that familiar to you? It should be, because it is the famous quote from the Honorable Malcolm X when he created the Organization of Afro-American Unity, another organization influenced by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. You see here, the motto of the organization was, we want justice by any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary.